You go. David Boclair, we're good to go with him. We got him on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Bokey, interesting week. Anytime the team that you cover just happens to bring a Hall of Famer and put him on the practice squad.
Yeah, give John Robinson and his staff credit, right? I mean, you're not going to replace Derrick Henry in this offense and what he has done the last couple of years, but I guess the best way to give it a shot, at least to get to replace some of that, is to go get the only other active player on the planet who's ever rushed for 2,000 yards in a season, right? And I think just interjecting a guy of that magnitude and with that kind of name recognition just has to add some juice to the room and sort of help everybody get past the sort of disappointment that I'm sure they were feeling on Monday and Tuesday.
Absolutely. The other guy they brought back, David, we were talking about this on Sunday on the postgame show. We saw Derrick maybe didn't look like himself and sort of got into discussion because at that time nobody knew how bad the injury was. Why did they got to bring somebody in? And we were talking about Deontay Foreman. He had a nice little 6-game run for the team, and they're giving him a look as well. And I would imagine he can come in, he'll know the system, and that dude will be ready to contribute also, hopefully.
Yeah, Todd Downing talked about Foreman today, and sort of interjected Foreman into some of his answers to questions about Adrian Peterson. It sort of felt like he's excited about Foreman and said, the terminology that he was involved with Atlanta during the preseason under Arthur Smith is the same things that they have in their playbook here. Like that, it's not like Arthur rewrote his terminology down there. So he certainly is a guy who can step in and do more than just the the basic running plays that everybody has in their playbooks right now. He should have a good sense of things. And a guy who was a terrific player in college, was kind of out of shape, had some issues early in his NFL career, but has sort of got himself pointed in the right direction. And this could be an opportunity for him to really get something out of an NFL career that looked like it was going to be a big bust early on.
I'm sure Titans fans sure hope so. David Boclair, our guest at Boclair Sports on Twitter, sportsillustrated.com, covering the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, Bokey, thanks for coming on. And, Foreman, I really like what he did last year. He showed glimpses of that he could be a pretty solid backup to the King. I'll be interested to see, do you think there's a possibility that he starts over AP just because of his knowledge, as you mentioned, of the playbook?
I don't think so, Blaine. I mean, I don't think you bring Adrian Peterson in to ease him into things and whatnot. And we've seen it with this team. You look a couple weeks ago, they plucked Greg Maben off the Cardinals practice squad, plug him right into the starting lineup, and he plays against the Kansas City Chiefs and contributes to the Chiefs not scoring a touchdown, right? And we've seen that a lot of times with this team under Mike Vrabel and this coaching staff. I think if you make that move with Adrian Peterson, you make that move because this is a guy who can give you some juice and can give you sort of at least some of the things Derrick Henry gave you in the offense. And I think Foreman, it's tough for me to decide right now if Foreman is a complementary piece to Adrian Peterson or if he's there more in case it doesn't work out with Peterson, because obviously at 36 years old, didn't put up big numbers last year, hadn't been with the team at all this year. I mean, there's no guarantees that this is going to be a great move for the Titans. So Foreman might be there just as a backup, but I don't think there's any doubt that Adrian Peterson is sort of the first and second down back Sunday against the Rams.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that, just based off his history and what he even did last year as far as AP. Reason I said Foreman is because of his familiarity. You name Maben, he was familiar with the system. Sometimes that can become an issue in a game, especially when you're on the road and it gets loud and he can't hear a check and he's not real in tune to all the checks anyway because he just got here. So that's why I say, does Foreman play a little bit more? You're probably right, because AP looks like he's going to be in shape and ready to rock and roll. I don't know how quickly he can pick up the system. It's not like it's super hard, but at the same time, it also can provide problems because of the noise and checks.
And I don't think it's far fetched either to think that that both of those guys get a handful of carries. I mean, Adrian Peterson, I say you don't bring him in to ease him into things, but he's also not going to get 28 or 30 carries Sunday night, right? I mean, if there are 25 carries to be had, maybe he gets 15, maybe Deontay Foreman gets 8, maybe Jeremy McNichols gets 2. You do something like that, but I think and maybe with Foreman it is some of the plays that are deeper in the playbook. I would assume with Peterson it'll be all the basic zone runs that pretty much any running back would know about, and it's going to be it's funny you talk about a Sunday night primetime showcase, and NBC executives are probably just pulling their hair out with disappointment over not having Derrick Henry on the field to talk about him all night. But from a Titans fan's perspective, I think this is there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of drama here to see how this thing plays out and what this game says about maybe what's to come over the next several weeks with this offense.
No question about it. We went with David Boclair. I guess, David, what have you seen out of the offense, even though the King is down now, and the defense that has looked the same or different than last season?
Well, A.J. Brown finally looks like A.J. Brown, right? I think that's the I think that's the really good news for the Titans and for Titans fans. And this is going to be an interesting time for him too. He's going to find out what it's really like to be a number one receiver in the NFL right now. I think he's going to get the DeAndre Hopkins treatment, the Devontae Adams treatment. Anybody in that class that you can name. That's probably how defenses are going to attack the Titans now and do their best to try to limit what A.J. Brown does. I think the biggest difference you see, or at least that I've noticed, is that this team has not come close to replacing Jonnu Smith and what he did for this offense last year and the many ways they used him. Anthony Ferguson got off to a rough start with the knee injury, and maybe he's still dealing with some of that. But we've seen very little other than the one touchdown drive in the second quarter against the Colts on Sunday. We've gotten very little out of the tight ends that I think that's an area that maybe coaches can exploit going forward, kind of working against tendencies right now. And without Derrick Henry out there, for example, you could use you could line up in a 2 tight end set, suggest that you're going to run, and then maybe motion Ferkser out into the slot. Ferkser did a lot of things from the slot in 2019 when guys were injured and did some good work out there. So I think there's a real opportunity for a guy like him in those sort of situations to maybe start seeing the ball come his way a little bit more.
Sticking with A.J. Brown, the star-like treatment, do you think, or how do you think these guys match up with Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Brown? Both of them really physical players at their positions.
Yeah, and the Rams could be the exception, right? Because they have Jalen Ramsey who can go cover anybody on the planet one-on-one, and that's I would expect a personal foul penalty or 2 from both of those guys in this game. It's going to get heated. AJ's a guy who doesn't play angry. He plays happy, right? He's a guy who has fun out there, it seems like, all the time. And whereas Ramsey seems like one of those guys who kind of plays angry and wants to try and get you off your game. And as much as the physical matchup is going to be a challenge for A.J. Brown, I think the mental matchup is going to be equally challenging because Jalen Ramsey will test him that way.
Were you surprised that the Titans didn't make a trade, or you was expecting no trade?
I'm not surprised that they didn't make a trade. It's a hard thing to do, and then the way things went with Henry getting injured the day before, and you had to address that, and probably I think they did as good as they could do in terms of addressing that when you add an Adrian Peterson and a guy who knows a little bit about your offense, and Deontay Foreman, and Foreman's a little bit of a bigger guy too. Maybe he's the short yardage back, or the goal, and the goal line back too. I think there was a lot going on there to try and worry about putting a deal together as the deadline approached too.
Well, with David Boclair with SI.com.
I was looking at the injury report yesterday. Haven't seen anything yet today, but Kari Blasingame, obviously running back / fullback depth. Nate Davis is on there. There's a starter. Rashawn Evans is on there. There's a starter. Then I got super nervous because they don't have a lot of D-backs already, and Chris Jackson, Greg Maben both on there. And Big Jeff didn't practice. That was the DNP list.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole lot of manpower right there that you would really like to see suit up in Los Angeles on Sunday night.
Yeah, the cornerbacks were the first thing that caught my attention yesterday when that list came out. And you're talking about there's 5 cornerbacks on the active roster right now, and you're already down in your organizational depth because Christian Fulton is still on IR, Caleb Farley's out for the year, and here we go. Now maybe you have to go a little farther down. There's 2 guys on the practice squad right now who could come up and step in there, but that's a situation that really bears watching. And then today I'm curious to see too, because we were supposed to talk to Bud Dupree before practice, and Bud never made it out. We were told he was getting treatment, so I'm doubtful. I guess that Bud's gonna be doing much of anything today at all either, and maybe he's going to be questionable again for another game. So this team does a remarkable job at dealing with injuries under Mike Vrabel and this staff, but better than I've ever seen. And this year has certainly tested them in that regard. And I don't think this game's going to be any exception in that way.
Well, and Boki, we've kind of watched the rookie class from the last couple of years, and obviously there hasn't been much to see until they just have to play them, till other people get banged up, whether it's Molden or Farley, or it could be Dylan Raiden's turn. Like, hey, man, you're starting this week. If Nate Davis can't go, then the Raiden's era could begin at guard.
Yeah, and if you've watched, Raiden's has gotten in there the last couple games. He finished the game Sunday against the Colts. The week before against the Chiefs, he got time replacing both Saffold and Nate Davis at both guard positions. And the one thing that stands out is he has a long way to go in pass protection right now. Like he gave up a sack Sunday that where he just plain whiffed on the guy. And if I'm the Rams and I'm Aaron Donald and I'm seeing that Nate Davis is not on the injury or is on the injury report, is not practicing, and there's a good chance that he's not going to play, then I would think Aaron Donald is salivating at the possibility of teaching Dylan Raiden a thing or two about the NFL on Sunday night.
David, yes, Aaron Donald. Oh my gosh, yeah, the biggest, baddest dude there is. Welcome to the NFL, Dylan Raiden. Welcome to starting. David, maybe we'll see. David Boclair, our guest.
Well, David, now that the fan base is starting to calm down that the King is not playing, I guess, what is your prediction, bold prediction, let's say, the next 9 weeks? I mean, because they could still go 5-4, win 11 games and get into the playoffs. But how do you think this team is going to ride out these next, 9 games?
Yeah, I think it's, they'll be fine. I think they're going to win the division. I think they're going to be competitive all the way through. They might have another clunker like they had against the Jets because they are going to be sort of redefining themselves a little bit. The one thing with Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry made the Titans different, right? Now they're just a good team the way a lot of other teams in the AFC right now are good.
They feared
teams.
him. They feared him, Bokey. People feared him.
Yeah. I mean, because he he is what made them different, and we've seen it. Those of us who do what we do, and the fans who have watched this team for every Sunday for years now, like you saw the impact of Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter on teams. You don't have that now. And how many times has this team come back in the fourth quarter or won games on the last drive and whatnot? How much exactly did Henry figure into that? You can't put a number on it, but he figured prominently in all that. So this team's going to have to find a different way to win games probably right now, and that means they're going to lose one or two that you might think that they shouldn't lose, but I still expect them to. I still expect them to win the division, be in the playoffs, and their charge now is to figure out how they can be playoff ready and what the identity of this team is offensively going into the playoffs, so that they are confident in how they're going to win games at that time of year.
No doubt. I guess lastly for me, I just saw the Texans released Hargraves, the cornerback there, and it seems like it's kind of becoming a norm after trade deadline. So I'm trying to get the motives from both sides, from a team's perspective, why you release a guy that you got to guarantee his contract, you got to pay him, and also from a player's point of view, did he request to get off or was he unhappy? This guy, he was starting. You may not like the way he was playing, but he was starting. So it seems to be a trend now going to the league. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's one of two things. Either the guy wasn't happy and coaches decided they'd just rather not have him around, or he's a really good guy, a guy who's given a lot to the organization. You tried to trade him, you couldn't get anything for him. So as miserable as the situation in Houston is, you cut him and you say good luck. Hopefully somebody will pick you up. If not immediately, then when they have an injury issue and they need a proven veteran to plug in there. I don't know the situation down there to say which one it is, but I would imagine it's one of those two things.
Well, with David Boclair, SI.com.
David, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much today, and look forward to catching up with you again at Boclair Sports on Twitter, Titans coverage at SI.com. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure, boys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Yes,
Bokey.
sir. One of the OGs of Nashville media right there, David Boclair. Always great to catch up with him. Got phone lines open. Anything you want to talk about, 615